Kwame Salter, how you doing, sir?
I'm good this morning. How are you, Tisha?
I'm feeling very good. I'm feeling very good. Thank you so much for making the time to get together and talk. I thoroughly enjoyed reading your book.
Thank you.
I have not spent time in corporate America personally in quite some time.
Mhm.
Certain things are like they're just etched in our emotional memory, I guess.
That's a good way to put it.
So a lot of it resonated with me, even though I'm not in that space or environment and haven't been
Mhm.
for a while now. Um, how This is your second book,
Yes.
right?
Mhm.
How long did it take you before, when you decided to write this book, or how did you decide to write this book?
Well, as a result of the first book, Striving While Black, which was preparing people to come into corporate,
Hmm.
I decided once you're into corporate, there's some more learnings that you need to be exposed to.
Hmm.
And so I thought it would be a companion book to Striving While Black.
Right,
So you're in the corporation,
right.
you've had some exposure, some experience, and more importantly, you've had some success.
Hmm.
And that success resulted in you becoming a leader of people.
Hmm.
Now, on the surface, that sounds great,
Hmm.
but the nuances of leading a
Right,
group of people
right.
who presume that you got that job because of your color or your ethnicity or your gender, you're going up against a presumption that
Mhm.
you're not fully qualified.
Right, right.
It's not true, but it is a perception.
Hmm.
And that perception oftentimes governs people's behavior and
Hmm.
attitudes towards you.
Yep.
So I thought, instead of suffering silently and individually, I would say, look, you're not alone. This is not something just affecting you.
Right,
This is systemic.
right.
And you have to figure out ways to be agile, nimble, alert,
Yeah,
and competent in your space
yeah.
without being sort of taken off your focus because somebody decides that they're going to challenge you all the time.
Right, right.
So go ahead.
Continue, please.
But that was it. And, I just thought, okay, what did I learn?
Hmm.
Because every year in corporate, I took mental notes. I have a mental diary of everything that ever happened.
Hmm.
And some of the little microaggressions, some of the little statements I dismissed, but I
Hmm.
realized there was a pattern to them.
Hmm.
There was a pattern.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out what's the pattern. I mean, you have the title, you have the position, you have the authority, and yet you've got to convince people that you belong here.
Right.
What I thought that was part of the vetting process. I thought that was part of how I got here.
Right.
And now I got to start all over. It's like it's like graduating from eighth grade and going to ninth grade.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
in eighth grade, you're the leaders.
Right.
Ninth grade, you start all over.
Right.
I thought in corporate, once you got to a certain point, your body of work speaks for itself. You got there because you were confident and you were deserving.
Right.
But there are things that linger and lurk
Hmm.
that undermine that presumption that I had. And
Yeah.
so I said, let me just record what I'm seeing. And at some point, I will probably write about it. And I did.
A couple of things that made me think about. One is just uh, how pervasive white supremacy uh, in America is.
Mhm.
Um, we often think about white supremacy as how white America dominates uh, all the other cultures.
Yeah.
What we don't talk about is the conditioning of white supremacy and how it's alive within those cultures.
Yes.
So it's not just, from white America to Black America or white America to Latino America or, any of those. It's like Black people in America are conditioned through white supremacy to deal with each other. And that's like one of the things that you talk about. I really like how you give color and character to the dynamics of how people interact, the doubter, the competitor, the homie, and I've experienced them, and it's like, to your point of, doubt, it's really jarring to earn the job that you already have, to get a job and then set about earning it
Again,
in the position,
yeah,
you know, and it's also jarring when, like you said, the the least qualified white person feels like they still have authority over you.
yes.
The least qualified, uh, under your supervision, even,
Mhm, mhm,
still
mhm.
feel this almost innate authority, over you.
Yes, we talk about the race card, who plays the race card,
Mhm,
but we don't play the race card. The
mhm,
race card has already been played. We don't have the race card in our deck. So it's to the point where we have to define what is white supremacy,
mhm,
because it's a difference between white supremacy and systemic racism.
mhm,
White supremacy is a attitude that
mhm,
I'm better than you.
mhm,
And what is it based on? Well, it's based on systemic racism.
mhm.
Every system, every process, every opportunity is tainted with a color bias.
Mhm,
And I've always said that we learned affirmative action from white people
mhm.
because it favored a person based on their ethnicity or race or color.
Right.
And we said, okay, if that's what we're competing with, then reverse the bias.
Mhm.
Give us a shot.
Yeah.
Okay. And now when we say, hey, we have an opportunity here that we should be able to take advantage of,
Mhm.
you say then, okay, now you guys are playing the race card.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm confused. I'm confused. I'm walking through a sea of white people every day at work, and nobody questions
Mhm,
the absence of people of color. Nobody questions it.
mhm, mhm.
And it's almost like we've defined for you areas in corporate America that you can survive in and perhaps prosper to some extent.
Right.
We talk about the DEI position, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Okay, that's yours. For years, women were relegated to secretarial or administrative positions.
Mhm,
That was yours, a little sort of a pink collar ghetto.
mhm.
Okay. But the big positions, the powerful positions, the line positions are hard to crack, to crack that code. And once we crack the code, then we, as you pointed out, we have to win all over again.
Mhm.
We think the promotion says that we've been acknowledged,
Right, right,
but in reality, that's not the case.
right.
So when we talk about white supremacy, you have to understand the game that's being played on white people.
Mhm,
10% of the people in this country control 90% of the wealth. White people who are not in that group simply derive their satisfaction from being, at least I'm not Black.
mhm,
I mean, that it boils down to that.
mhm.
At least, no matter what your status is, no matter what your title is, you're Black and
Right,
I'm not.
right.
And I know that I live in a country where there is an advantage to being white,
Mhm,
quote unquote. But what is the advantage? You don't get any more money.
mhm.
You get a few more opportunities. But if that's what you're claiming to be your advantage, your skin color, then you have to figure out a way to keep us always marginalized.
Yeah,
So that's why I said the least qualified can sit there and say, at least I'm white. He may
yeah,
have a position,
yeah.
but at least I'm white.
And aside from money or overt opportunity, uh, there's a case to be made that being white allows, in this system of things, uh, allows people to walk through life without constantly being questioned for being there.
Yes,
And
yes,
Black people don't have that luxury.
no,
Black people are questioned for existing. Why are you here?
right.
What business do you have here? Whether it's a traffic stop or an executive position. Like, why are you here?
Or whether you're jogging through a neighborhood,
Or jogging through a neighborhood. Right,
why are you here?
right.
You are off the reservation.
Yeah.
You should go back to your reservation. We can acknowledge you exist only if you're in your reservation.
Mhm.
Because then we have people who are hired to monitor, profile, and arrest you.
Mhm.
So it's a control system when you're back in your ghettos.
Mhm.
When you're out of your ghetto, it's like a fish out of water. What are you doing here?
Right.
One of my students who's from the Cameroon, my wife and I asked him, what was the experience being a Black African to being an African American? He said, well, there's a different dynamic when you're African Americans are talking to Africans.
Mhm.
But to white people, you're a Black man.
Mhm.
He gave the example of his first week of class. He's walking to class at Concordia University in Chicago in River Forest, which is a very Tony little neighborhood. And this older white woman walks out and says, what are you doing here? Why are you walking through here?
Mhm.
He said, I'm going to class. She said, I doubt it, and followed him. He said, well, come on to class. And then she finally gave up.
Mhm.
This is an example of the microaggressions that we have to face.
Mhm.
Even the African who comes here and thinks, I'm different than the African American.
Right.
Even the Latino Black who claims I'm more Hispanic than I am Black. And I always point out, you are what you're perceived to be when you walk out of your house. Your accent does not protect you from the discrimination of, that is leveled at Black people.
Mhm.
Your accent doesn't do that. And what the Middle Eastern brothers and sisters found out after 9/11 is that you are still considered just a step up from Black people.
Right.
But you are part of the group that we discriminate against.
Yeah. It's just interesting to me when I think about the idea of whiteness and how this category was constructed, and the different ethnicities that were cobbled together
Right.
to be included.
Right.
Like anything outside of that group is not white.
Right. And what we have today, and you alluded to it earlier, how has systemic racism affected people of color? And I often say reverse racism is when we are taught to hate ourselves.
Mhm.
And we are.
Mhm.
And there are people in corporate America who are not interested in advancing the agenda of Black people. They're interested in advancing their own personal agenda.
Mhm.
So what they do is they lean white.
Mhm.
They're white adjacent.
Mhm.
They look Black, they talk Black, but their mentality, their values are, I don't want to be considered Black.
Yeah.
I want you to see me as just a person. And I would like everybody to be seen just as an individual. But the reality, living in a country that gave South Africa the blueprint for apartheid. South Africa got its blueprint for apartheid from America, from the Jim Crow laws. So we look at South Africa back in the day and we go, oh my God, how awful.
Right.
This is the system that was exported to them.
Right.
They saw it working.
Yeah.
So when we start thinking about how we are done in this country, you have to understand that it starts out with the first enslaved person. No man or woman will voluntarily want to be enslaved.
Right.
And we fought from the transatlantic crossing, we fought, people committed suicide. If you know the history, we did not willingly accept this. There were rebellions, there were resistance all along the way. No human being will accept being enslaved. No human being. And so we have this system now. The system, in order to work, has to have supports. They have to build in things to the system so that it's not an individual decision anymore. The system takes care of it. That's what systemic racism does.
Right.
It provides access to privileges. It provides discriminatory practices that you don't even have to do anything as an individual to activate. It's already activated. The system is activated. The system is poised to do what it's supposed to do. When people say in recruiting, I can't find any good, qualified Black people. That's systemic because one, the system says we don't even look for them. What do you mean? Fine, we don't even look for them. If you look at the schools they recruit at, it's clear they're not looking for so-called people of color.
You talk about something really interesting, and I kind of want to talk about this and unpack it a little bit too. But emotional intelligence, there's one thing to recognize and acknowledge the environment you're in, and then the question is, if I'm going to be here, how do I navigate, and what tools do I need to navigate in this environment? And you talk about emotional intelligence as one of those tools.
EQ is very important.
Yeah.
It's important for all leaders, regardless of their ethnicity, color, gender. It is the ability to be self-aware. It's the ability to exercise empathy towards people. It's the ability to function in groups. It's the ability to have a purpose and a vision. But most importantly, it's being empathetic. It's understanding. It's understanding yourself, first of all. You run into problems, and the first thing you do is you blame other people or the external environment for your problem. Oftentimes, the real issue is you. It's between your ears. It's your style of dealing with people. It's not respecting people. And so most successful Black professionals have incredible EQ because they have to dodge racial bullets all the time. They don't know who really is supportive of them. They don't know who is critiquing them, whether that critique is based on that person's perception of Black people, or if that critique is a genuine attempt to help us grow. We don't know. So when somebody says, let me give you some feedback, we're thinking, where's this coming from? Where's this coming from? And that's the difficulty, because we need mentors, we need advocates. But most people realize that what's beginning to happen is that the advocate oftentimes is also afflicted with this virus called racism. It may not be overt, it may be subtle. I tell the story of when I was at the university in my sophomore year, and I was an honor student, and I'd written this paper, and the professor handed the papers back, and I didn't get my paper, and he said, "I'm holding your paper because it's clear that you didn't write this paper." I said, "Based on what?" He said, "Based on your experience. How could you write this paper?" And I said, "Okay." He said, "Well, we're going to the dean on this." They go to the dean, and at the time I had a 3.65 or a 4 average. He comes back and he apologizes. And I said, "Okay." He said, "That's all you have to say?" And I go, "Yeah, that's all I have to say." He said, "Son, you act like you're carrying the burdens of your people on your shoulders." I said, "Apparently I am." Okay. Now, fast forward, I received the Distinguished Alumni Award. I also received the Outstanding Recent Alumni Award. Only 9 people in the 150-year history of University of Wisconsin-Whitewater received both awards. They asked me who I wanted to present. And this professor was still alive that I wanted to present him. I said, "I don't think so."
Right.
I don't think so. And I'm not harboring anything. It's just, it's ironic how things work out.
Yeah. And that's a romantic narrative and story ending that makes everybody feel good about the win, so to speak.
Right, the win.
That win only exists because of this
Persistence.
Yeah, like it doesn't.
Just persistence.
Right.
I knew what I was up against.
Right.
And this is the challenge that I think a lot of our people have today. They don't know what they're up against because they don't realize the struggle and the agitation that it took to get them to where they're at. They don't realize it. They don't appreciate it. They think they did it themselves. And I always say, if you succeed and did not suffer, someone suffered before you.
Right, right, right.
And if you suffer and do not succeed, someone will succeed after you.
Mm-hmm.
But don't think you did it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There were nameless, faceless, ordinary people who
Right.
went in through back doors, who cleaned white people's houses, who shined their shoes, just so that you
Mm-hmm.
get an opportunity that they didn't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I see the portrait of Muhammad Ali behind you. I'm curious to know, who are some of your heroes?
Okay, well, I'll start with, this is in no particular order. Maya Angelou,
Mm-hmm.
whose
Why?
clarity,
Maya?
her clarity and ability to break down what appeared at first blush to be complex, and she breaks it down to simple terms. When a person first reveals themselves to you, believe them the first time.
Yeah.
Just her great poem, Still I Rise.
Right. Right.
It's this persistence that we will not go away.
Mm-hmm.
We will not go away.
Yeah, there's something, I don't want to get away from the list of other heroes, but there's something that she said that resonated with me so much, in that she talked about courage and how courage is the most important of all of the our characteristics and attributes.
It's true.
Because without courage, you won't exhibit any of the others
Right.
consistent.
And just remember, a hero is an ordinary person who was just brave 5 minutes longer.
Mm-hmm.
So courage is not something that you walk around with.
Right.
Courage is something you call on.
Right.
And if you're an empty vessel, nothing will come when you call. Courage is always being poised and prepared to respond.
Right.
To look out for yourself and your interest and your families.
Mm-hmm.
And your people.
Mm-hmm.
Courage. Courage is not always a physical issue.
Right.
Courage is being in a meeting and making a statement
Mm-hmm.
that will cause discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
But it's necessary to get us to the next level.
Right.
Another heroine of mine is Fannie Lou Hammond.
Mm-hmm.
When I went down as a graduate student and helped her in Mount Bayou,
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi, and brought some students down.
Yeah.
And I remember meeting her. But what I always have carried with me was her statement, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Mm-hmm.
John F. Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
While his personal life was sordid,
Mm-hmm.
I think he brought to this country a vision of hope that was sort of a precursor to Barack Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Same theme.
Mm-hmm.
Hope, change, we can do this.
Yeah.
Malcolm X.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm's intellect
Mm-hmm.
and ability to drill down
Mm-hmm.
into what the real issue was.
Yeah.
To be analytical in a way that is not self-serving, but to be honest about it.
Yep.
Martin Luther King, his oratory, people talk about, but if you listen to his words, they're profound. They're profound.
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad Ali, because he was, as a young man, I had similar tendencies, and I had no role model.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was considered arrogant, only because I was confident.
Right.
And so here's this man who transcends my arrogance to the point where I look modest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I loved him.
Right.
Frederick Douglass.
Mm-hmm.
My mother and my father.
Mm-hmm.
Powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
Who made sure that I never, ever deluded myself.
Yeah.
That I faced reality. This is reality.
Yeah.
This is what you have to deal with. And you need to equip yourself to deal with it.
Right.
I was never told that white people were superior. Right. Or I was inferior. Right. In fact, I was told the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So all these people, collectively, I tried to channel and represent.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember if not the first time, but an early time in life where you were first self-aware of Kwame Salter in this world, and not only um, your existence in the world that you're in, but what you wanted to become and what you wanted to do with life?
I was 12 years old.
Hmm.
I always wanted my own money.
Okay.
And so I was going around the neighborhood asking people if I could clean their grass, cut their grass, shovel their snow, pick glass out of their grass, do all that.
Hmm.
And it was a modest earning, but it wasn't enough. So I convinced my parents to let me get a work permit, and I got a paper route at age 12. And I had a morning route, and it had to be up at 4 o'clock, and I had to deliver the papers and then be back to school. Now, as a 12-year-old by yourself at 4 o'clock in the morning, you have a lot of time to think, and you have a lot of time to face your fears because it's dark and you're young. And it's a weird time. It's the witching hour. You don't know what's going on. But you get a chance to know yourself. You get reintroduced to yourself, your fears, your beliefs, your confidence. Everything gets challenged and checked. So I remember that. I remember saying, you know what? I want to be independent. I want to be independent. And at one point, my father was laid off, and it was Christmas, and I had this route of 100 customers, and I got $200 back in the day, which was a lot of money, from tips, Christmas tips. I gave all the money to my family, and my father was so impressed. He said, "Don't you want anything?" I said, "Just for y'all to be happy. I don't need anything else."
Yeah.
But there's something that was deposited in me, and I can't explain it. I remember my father, when he was dying, he asked me, "When did you know you were different?" I said, "When I was 5. He said, "How did you know you were different at 5? I said, "I understood adult conversations. I saw contradictions. I saw people pretending to be friendly. And then when they'd leave, I would hear you all talking about them." He said, "So how did you contain that? How did you?" I said, "I knew I couldn't say anything. I didn't have the vocabulary, the repertoire. I couldn't explain it. I just felt it. I just knew something was wrong."
Right.
And so, yeah, I've always known I was different, but you know what? It's not me. It's what was deposited in me is what is deposited in you. We don't know why we do these things.
Yeah.
We don't doubt it. We don't question. This is our purpose in life. My purpose in life is to teach, to inspire, and to lead. That's my purpose in life.
Yeah.
And over time, it started out very foggy, but then it got very clear and sharp. And I realized if I follow this, if I follow my purpose, if I do what the Most High laid out for me, I don't have to worry about a damn thing. As Bob Marley said, you can't be wrong if you're right. Okay. So I just have always wanted to help my people see their beauty, see their brilliance, see their just resilience, just their resilience. You show me another people on the planet Earth that's come as far as we have out of enslavement, has done as much as we've done without government assistance. In fact, with government resistance. You show me a people. We bring people over from Afghanistan, we bring people over from Vietnam, we bring people over from Eastern Europe, we give them stipends, we help them. We built this country, and if you were to ask for reparations, which modestly estimated at about $8 trillion, people recoil, like, why are we paying you? Well, why did we build this? What do we get out of this? Nothing. And so what happens is like in Brazil, at one point, Brazil was going to be predominantly Black. The Brazilian government decided to bring in Eastern European whites to keep the balance of white over Black. So for some reason, W.E.B. Du Bois' statement that the 20th century, the question will be the color color line. He was right. It's all about color. I can't explain, Tayshaun, why this is such a big issue. And I know that when the Irish came over, they weren't considered white initially.
Right.
They weren't. It was the WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. When the Italians came over, they weren't considered. Right. Jewish people weren't considered. But as we started making moves, the WASP, the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, start bringing in more white people, sort of defining them as white people.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But if you think about those ethnic groups, the Italians, the Jews, the Irish, there's still pockets of those people trapped in ghettos. Italians, Irish. You just go to South Boston.
Right.
You just, if you want to just change the color on the screen and the conditions they live in. Now, the majority of Irish people are doing well.
Right.
Okay. But there's still those people, the linen Irish, plus the poor Irish. The Italians, the darker Italians, they're still. If you're Hispanic and you're Cuban and you are more European than you are Hispanic, you got a leg up. So what we have to try to figure out is, how do we dismantle this system that's so irrational, that's so emotional, that's so much based on speculation and lies? How do we dismantle this? Well, we dismantle it through knowledge and insight and trying to get our people together. But our problem is, every success we have, we lose somebody. Clarence Thomas sits on the Supreme Court and claims he did this all himself.
Right.
How did he get the Holy Cross?
Right.
Okay. There are a number of people like that. Tom Sowell, brilliant man, but they all tell a story about coming out of the ghetto. Why were you in the ghetto, buddy?
Right. I want to talk about power. You know, as a person ascends in a corporate environment and corporate structure, there is particularly for Black people who are working their way up. Right? They didn't, they weren't gifted any role or position by who they're related to or what the last name is, anything of that sort. Working up, there is a want for comfort. There is a want for less scrutiny. And there's a want for agency. But there isn't the same want for power, just objective power.
Yeah.
And that creates friction a lot of times, because, with responsibility comes, or with title or ascension, powers part parcel.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I love power. I think power is something that we have almost an allergic reaction to power as a people. I think what we have to realize is that power is not something that is bad. We think it's bad because the people who have power have basically used it against us.
Right.
But I define power as the ability to direct and control phenomena to your desired benefit. Power can be a good thing. It can stop bad things from happening to you. It can make good things happen for you. But what happens is that we get to the point where we give back power because we want to be accepted. So, we can be the senior VP and we can go to one of our white staff members and go, hey, look, how do you think I should do this? And why are we going to that person? Because we know that they have conversations about us that is not shared with us. But we need to understand three things about the triangle I talk about: is power, values, and resources. The controlling group will always give you, if you agitate enough, they will give you resources to quiet you down. They will even bring in activism and bring it inside. Okay, we've had some great leaders. I mean, I gotta tell you, I have seen more good Black leadership run by being brought inside than bad whiskey. I mean, it's run more good Black people than bad whiskey. They get inside and they suddenly lose sight of how they got there.
Right.
And they look at you like, hey man, I'm getting over. The whole theme is getting over. And when you hear a Black person saying they're getting over, grab your wallet, move away from them, step away from them, because you are as much a victim of their agenda as anybody else.
Right.
If Tayshaun says something that may be considered a little controversial, it's only controversial because it challenges the norm. Then these are the people they go to and go, well, do you agree with Tayshaun? It becomes a litmus test.
Right.
Okay, do you agree with Kwame?
Right.
And what they, oh, no, I don't feel that way. That's getting over.
Right.
But in a sense, they're selling themselves. What they're saying is, I'm for sale. You name the price. I'm for sale. And what I'm saying to Sean is, I'm not for sale. There's not enough money you can put before me to sell my integrity. You know? I realize the situation we're in as Black people in this country. But I also realize that we have made incredible contributions to this country. And we need to be recognized and acknowledged for those contributions.
Yeah.
I find it so hilarious when we're talking about baseball and football and all those sports, where if we were so inferior, why would you make it illegal for us to play the sport?
Right.
I mean, so the whole systemic system is designed to keep you out. We don't want to deal with you. Boxing was the only sport, and even Jack Johnson had issues with that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So I think when you look at power, like I said, power, values, and resources. If you agitate enough, you'll get resources. If you sort of catalyze and get people excited and start a movement, they'll even give you some power, limited. But you can make certain decisions. But the thing that the controlling group will never give up is values. What do we value? We don't value you as a people. We don't value your insights. We don't value your complaints. We don't, because a complaint is really a request. If you examine a complaint hard enough, it's a request.
Yeah.
When somebody says, Tayshaun, I don't like the way you're treating me, what they're really saying is, Tayshaun, could you treat me better?
Right.
So for every complaint, I flip it over to find out what is the real request. Now, what values systems say is that, no. We don't ever believe you have the right to change the values of this organization. So this is the challenge that DEI has right now. They think it's just a matter of publicity, of saying the right things. But there's no attempt to look at the structure and the organization, and the organization is designed to do what it does. Yeah. It takes somebody to dismantle that and look at it and say, here are the areas where systemic racism operates. I'll give you an example. Several years ago at Kraft, my boss, who was very progressive, decided we were going to look at equity issues among Blacks, among people of color, primarily Blacks. We said people of color, it's a euphemism for Black people. Because everybody else is waiting for us to do something. We shake the tree, they pick up the fruit. Okay? But you never hear them. You never, they're saying to white people, hey, we're not upset. It's Black people. Okay, but when Black people get it, hey, well, we deserve that too. We deserve that too. So here you have people who are sitting around waiting for us to do something. And I'm saying that the DEI people, what I'm telling them is that you just signed on to a massive cultural shift. You're trying to change the culture and the systemic alignments that keep us down. But what happens is that they're hired at $300,000-400,000 a year to explain why nothing was done.
Mm-hmm.
That becomes their job.
Mm-hmm.
They're the flag catcher. I've always said, if you really want to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion, you really need to have a young white male in charge of it because they know how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have these jobs?
Mm-hmm.
First of all, you disempowered us.
Mm-hmm.
And you made the whole DEI initiative, you just painted a black face on it or female face on it, usually a black face. And so here we are sitting around trying to figure out what can we do to change this organization? And everybody's applauding. Whoa, congratulations, you got the DEI position. That feeds one family, Tayshaun. The idea is to open up the organization, to bring people in, to stock the pond so that we have potential leaders in that organization that are being developed.
Yeah.
So I'm not angry with these D&I people. I'm just simply saying that, hey, you don't get it. You don't get it. Mm-hmm. If as one of my proteges said, Kwame, based on what you're saying, I look at it this way. If your budget for D&I is yourself and an administrator, then you've lost.
Mm. Yeah.
Because they have the job and the title, but they don't have any organizational influence or power.
Right.
So what, you gonna make somebody do something?
Right.
Oh, by the way, it also takes you off the career track.
Mm-hmm.
Because while you're sitting in that job, somebody else is going right past you. That somebody else is usually a white male. Mm. While you're fighting lions with toothpicks, so to speak, there you and you're explaining why we haven't done it, and you're putting out these little. We're going to have this workshop where everybody's going to confess they love each other, and we're going to do a kumbaya and all that. It doesn't move the needle. Mm-hmm. We've been at this thing for over 50 years, mm-hmm. and now we have a bumper crop of DEI professionals. Yeah. And my point is, and who do they report to? Right. They don't report to the president. Right. President is held harmless. CEO is held harmless. Oh, our numbers look bad. Talk to my DEI. Talk to that guy. Mm-hmm. What does that guy have? He has no power. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. The thing about diversity, equity, and inclusion that I'm fascinated by is that a lot of the narrative, a lot of the messaging is about how people behave, mm-hmm. and not about what do people believe to be true,
and not structural,
and not structural. And I have a friend of mine who works in an organization, and they're going through their DEI work, and there is, and it's a rather young organization, mm-hmm. but there is a resistance to changing their core principles.
Yes,
because
Tayshaun, those are values. Remember I said values?
Values, yeah.
Core principles.
Yep. And those values have come through, for a lot of organizations, a white male lens.
Right.
So they're not in harmony with the values of, Black people and the values of disenfranchised people, the values of, anyone other than those white males.
Right. Well, their group.
Yeah.
Their group.
Yeah.
I mean, even their wives and their sisters now are hitchhiking on affirmative action and diversity. Mm-hmm. So they're getting two checks in the mail. Mm-hmm. They're getting the check and they're resisting, but at the same time they're benefiting from the thing they're resisting.
Right.
Irony.
Right. I remember you said something in the interview I saw with a brother. You talked about values.
Oh yeah.
He said, you tell organizations, don't tell me your values, show me your budget.
Right. It's because your budget is your value statement. Mm-hmm. You only fund what you value. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. So what are they saying now with DE&I? We value publicity. Mm-hmm. We don't value change. Mm-hmm. We just have to figure out how to keep people at bay here. We want you to think we're still operating in goodwill.
Right.
But structurally speaking, behind you, right, the machinery keeps operating efficiently to keep us out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this position, I said earlier, what we did a few years ago, we looked at equity issues, and we looked at women and people of color.
Mhm.
What we found is that women usually get higher performance ratings, but lower merit increases.
Mhm.
So what typically happens, a woman will get a exceeds rating
Mhm.
and not get as much as the male who got a fully meets rating,
Mhm.
because the rating is based on a range.
Mhm.
So an exceeds rating, the lower end of the exceeds rating is the equal to the higher end of the fully meets.
Mhm.
So we knew there was a game being played.
Yeah. Yeah.
What we found with Black people in particular was that we typically got lower ratings,
Mhm.
performance ratings,
Mhm.
and we typically were brought in at the low end of the salary range
Right.
compared to someone with similar and equal qualifications. But we get brought in sometimes below the salary minimum,
Mhm.
which means we're always going to be catching up.
Yeah.
That's systemic.
Yeah.
Somebody makes a decision because the system says, I can take Tayshaun
Right.
and put him below the salary minimum,
Right.
because all they wanted was a Black guy to be higher.
Mhm.
So the rest of the game now, I know how the system works, so I'll put him below the range minimum.
Mhm.
So in 5 years, he won't even be at range midpoint.
Right.
Whereas this other guy came in, I brought him in at 3 to 5% range penetration. That is 5% over the minimum.
Mhm.
He's already ahead of Tayshaun.
Yeah.
Same university, same school.
Mhm.
So when I talk about this, I'm trying to have people understand that organizations do what they're designed to do.
Mhm.
We think it's somehow people. No, it's the system is already in place to do what it's designed to do. I'll give you the tools to discriminate against this individual.
Right.
And it's all legit.
Yeah.
Until somebody checks it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to circle back a little bit because one of the points that I thought was so fascinating, so important, is the homie.
The homie.
When you receive a promotion, and how it's one of those things where they talk about it in the same way that they talk about money. They say like money changes people, and then people who get money realize, no, you're treating me like the money man now.
Right.
Well, you didn't treat me like this before. Like
Right.
everybody around starts to change and shift the way they
Right.
interact with the person. And then
That's a good point.
same thing with these positions of power. It's like you get somebody who was cordial, friendly, but they
Right.
now become the homie.
Right.
And now it's
Hey, Tayshaun,
yeah,
can you hook a brother up? It's can you hook a brother up? The same person who wouldn't say anything to you because he didn't see you coming down the track.
right.
So he made a rational decision. I will work to impress white people and not Tayshaun, because Tayshaun can't help me.
Mhm.
Oh, but all of a sudden Tayshaun is in this power position.
Mhm.
So I maintain that these people become what I call culturally comfortable.
Mhm.
So they go, hey, Tayshaun, hey, what's up, brother? Would you greet a senior VP that was white that way?
Right.
Okay, that you had probably the same level of interaction with that you had with me. But now, you're gonna give me the black handshake, you're gonna do all this stuff. Now I got the position.
Mhm.
The homie is someone you have to watch because they come from the school of getting over.
Mhm.
And they simply think I can get comfortable with you.
Right.
I remember one of my direct reports, I'd given an assignment to, and he didn't do it.
Mhm.
And so I asked him, well, I didn't get to it. And I'm thinking, you didn't get to it?
Right.
Have you used that excuse with anybody else?
Right.
Well, you understand, man. No, I don't understand. So to your point, what happens is with the homie is the one who's playing both ends against the middle. The homie sees the movement towards human rights and justice as just being another tool he can use to advance his or her own career. Usually they are the most anti-white people you can find. You know,
Yeah.
but when you see him out in the public, you think, oh boy, he's charming. But you see him, like, I can't stand them white folks. Them white folks, this. You go, wow.
Yeah,
It's like Chris Rock said, some of the most hateful black people are the older black people who spend all these years having to Uncle Tom with white folks. And then they get to a certain point and you find out they couldn't stand it, but it was called survival.
Right.
It was called survival. So we have to watch the homie, and we have to be truthful, as I say in the book, to the homie. We have to tell him, hey, slow down, sit down.
Mm-hmm.
Like I told one guy, I said, you know, if it takes you visualizing me as a white man to respect me, go visualize.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't respect me, respect the position.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Because it gets to the point of being insulting.
Right.
It's not that I want to be a standoffish type of guy, but I don't want you to assume that you, because with, like I said, all that glitters ain't gold, all that's black ain't soul.
Mm-hmm. So
what we're saying is that not only is the hue, it's the view. Mm-hmm. What's your view? That's what I'm interested in. Yeah. As Nelson Mandela said, I will never trade white oppression for black oppression. I'm against oppression.
Right.
I'm against somebody taking advantage of people.
Right. So, you know, for people that are moving up, for black people that are moving up in the corporate mm-hmm. world, you know, there is like I said, the acknowledgement and the recognition of what the environment is, mm-hmm. and what the some of the players look like. Mm-hmm. What would you say though are the priorities to keep in mind, not only to advance in power, but to, you know, keep your integrity and your blackness?
Well, your blackness is sort of an independent variable. Mm-hmm. It's there. You're not going to get rid of it no matter what you do. That's who you are. But you can also work on your being competent. Mm-hmm. You see, this is the thing I tell people. And old people used to tell us, old black folks used to tell us that get an education, they can't take that from you. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they were right. But being confident, they can't take that away from you either. Mm-hmm. And I've heard black people say, well, I got this job because they needed a black person. How silly can you be? Mm-hmm. They needed somebody to do the job, but more importantly, they need somebody dumb enough to think they were doing you a favor. Mm-hmm. Ain't nobody doing you a favor. That's not the way corporate works. Right. Anybody do you a favor. I need a black person, like a fish needs a bicycle. I don't need them. What they need is somebody who can do the job. Yeah. And you mentioned this early on, how it's affected us, how systemic racism affected us. We actually don't think we're qualified. We think that we're getting these jobs because they're doing us a favor. Right. And so they get in the job and they don't rise to the level of the job. They're just happy to be in the job. They fall into the category I refer to as glad to be here. Mm-hmm. But I reduce this to what I call poise, presence, projection, and politics. The first thing you need to have is poise. You can't be rattled. In the book, I talk about it as one of the key strategies, keeping your cool. Mm-hmm. Poise. Mm-hmm. You know, I use the example that water is a universal element, right? You can have water in any milk. It's not like wine, you know, red wine with beef. You know, water sits within. Mm-hmm. As a person aspiring to be a leader, you have to have poise. You have to be comfortable in any environment. You have to be comfortable. You know, Al Pacino said something that makes a lot of sense and resonated with me. He said, I used to walk in the room and wonder if people liked me. Mm-hmm. Now I walk in the room and wonder if I like them. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's poise. I'm okay. I'm here. Wherever I go, there I am. Right. That's poise. Right. Presence is, there's something magnetic about us. And I used to tell black people this, they get so upset about, you know, I'm the only black person. I said, that's an advantage. Mm-hmm. When I was running for office, there were 13 candidates the first time I ran. Mm-hmm. I got as much coverage with less money because I was the one black candidate. Mm-hmm. And what I'm saying that when you walk in a room and you know that people are waiting for you to fail, this is your opportunity to turn it around and succeed. Right. You have their attention. Mm-hmm. If you are confident, you're going to win. Mm-hmm. You don't have to angle for attention. Mm-hmm. hey, you were that black guy in that meeting, right? They always remember that. So use that to your advantage. Just presence. Projection is clarity of articulation. Saying what you mean and meaning what you say. If you don't know, say you don't know. As an old friend of mine once said, if you don't know what to do, know what to say. If you don't know what to say, know what to do. And the fourth one is politics. Politics is the allocation of power, values, and resources. Politics exists not only in corporate, it exists in our homes. At home, we're talking about, if you got kids, you know, the allocation of power, values, and resources. At a certain point, you give your kids more power. But what do you always control?
Right.
The values.
Right.
You tell your kid, we don't do things like that here. We don't do that. Well, Dad, I'm gonna make a lot of money, but we don't do things like that.
Right.
Okay, we don't talk that way.
Right.
Okay, that's the value set that most people ignore. So I think I would say to people, be prepared, the old Boy Scout thing, be prepared, be comfortable with yourself, to have the poise, always read what the people who are opposing you read. Always read them. Know more about the people who are opposed to you than the people who are for you. Because I was told by one of my mentors, an old white guy, conservative guy, and he said, the way it works is 20% of the people, I was running for office, he said 20% of the people will not like you no matter what you do. You just will not like you. He said 20% of the people will love you no matter what you do. They will love you. He said 60% of people just checking you out.
Right.
He said if you can move 20% of that 60, you win.
Yeah.
So you always got to remember, no matter what you do, there are certain people who just don't like you. Right. I like to say it this way. What people think about me is none of my business. That's their business. Because they don't know me.
Yep.
But the point I want to make about this whole book is that I wrote this book to put into circulation thoughts, insights, ideas that people have thought about. There's nothing new in the book I wrote. All I did was crystallize your experiences. I crystallized it. You don't have time to sit around and crystallize. I did. I wrote it. I said, here, it's out there. Right. It lives a life of its own. It will heighten contradictions. It will cause people to think about, if I can get you to go, then I've won. Now, the missing ingredient, some of you alluded to, is courage. My book can help you intellectually, but emotionally, you have to have the courage to carry out some of these things. Because I list in there 7 habits of bad bosses. Avoid those. And then I list in there 7 habits of a good leader. Authenticity, sincerity, all that. The book can be used by anybody. However, it is for Black people. I'll be clear about that. And this is not a book chastising white people for being racist. This is a book that says we acknowledge that systemic racism exists. And now we have to do something, and we have to help each other. We have to consider me like a corner man in a boxing match. I'm your corner man. I'm telling you, here's what you got. You got to bob, you got to weave, you got to do this in order to win the fight.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate you very much. I appreciate the book.
I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to doing this again with or without another book. I enjoy listening.
I enjoy talking to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much.